there to our 134 subscribers, our future subscribers, and all the people that secretly watch me without subscribing. I decided I wanted to share with you guys some books that were my favorites over the years, and mostly years growing up. And so, one of them I'm going to have to either order or get from the library because it's missing. The one we're doing today, though, I actually originally got the book when it was first released, like around 92, and I was upset one day. My dad used to always get me music related stuff, for birthday and Christmas and stuff like that. And one year he wanted to get me something different, and I told him that something had happened to this one book. I don't at this point remember if it was missing or damaged or whatever. So he got me a new copy, and so it looks a little different than my original, but because it was like released in 94. And then this one's gotten damaged too, despite the fact I never actually read it until last week. So anyway, it's called The Doomsday Book by Connie Willis, and it's a long book. It is almost 600 pages, and the book is broken into 3 parts, which she labeled book 1, book 2, and book 3. And I originally was working on writing a script for this video, and I've decided not to do that. And it's kind of funny because I went to go look at the script to see if there was anything important that I wanted to tell you guys, and it's missing. So anyway, I guess I will just tell you a little bit about it and just kind of wing it. So the story, it takes place in the future. Oh my gosh, I totally forget when. 2056 or somewhere in there. I don't remember exactly. I could look, but we don't want to delay the video. So 2050 something is when the book takes place, or part of the book. And it's a book about some historians, how they travel back in time to study history. And this young girl decides that, I don't know exactly how young she is, but she's kind of young, I know, because they keep commenting about it. But she decides she wants to go back to the year 1320, which was a little bit before the plague, because the plague hit this one place in 1348. And so she wanted to see how things were before the plague hit. And so they had plans. They were to send her back for a couple of weeks and then retrieve her. And in the meantime, they had implanted like a recorder in her wrist. So she just put her hands together like this, like she was praying, and talk, and it would record everything that she was saying. And so she could take notes. And there were some things that, first of all, the book back in 1992 when I first read it, 93 whenever I read it, I have a totally different perspective on it now than I did back then. When I was reading it now, it seemed like a completely different book, other than the main the main subject. I think mainly because there's a lot of stuff about plagues and diseases and stuff in the book, and none of that was really real to me until we went through the recent pandemic thing. So as I was reading the book, I felt like I was reading a completely different book, which is kind of cool, I guess. 30 years, and the fact that going from a teenager to an older adult changes your perspective when you're reading. And I never realized how much it would change. Not only that, because now I write books myself and I edit books for other people, it also changed how I read the book, as far as like things would annoy me because they should have been edited differently. And to be fair, internet wasn't really widely spread back then. It was like right around the time the internet was really starting. And so she didn't have the ability to do all the research like I can when I'm editing other people's books for them. So there is that. And so there are some inconsistencies and things that are incorrect about it. So please don't get upset with her for not knowing things, since they weren't easily, probably not easily learnable. There were some other things in editing that I, like, as I was reading the book, I was like, man, I wish I could edit this book, because sometimes she would have somebody saying something and the same person would keep talking, but she'd like broke it up like it was something completely different when it wasn't. And it was kind of odd to me. Or she'd have two people talking in the same paragraph, which was weird to me. And so it was kind of laid out odd. And I know there was one place, I think it was in the first or second chapter, where I think it was the first chapter, where they were talking, and all of a sudden there's a completely different conversation going on. That was a conversation that had happened previously, but there was no indication that they had changed what they were doing in the book. So it was very confusing. It took me a minute to catch on and realize that it was like they were talking about a conversation or remembering a conversation, because there was no clear indicator that that's what it was. So be aware of that if you go to read the book. And also, it took me a while. I was reading through it, and I got kind of frustrated at the end of the first part of the book because of language issues. Because she's going back to 1300s, and people talk differently, and I was like annoyed because it kept talking in another language. And so finally I got frustrated. I went to Google and Googled something that was said. And when I typed it into Google, it automatically went to her book, because apparently it wasn't typed as how the language was spelled. It was phonetic. And so I found out that as you're reading, when it comes to the parts where it's in a different language, you should just sound out what it says on the page, and then maybe you could figure out what she's talking about. And so anyway, yeah, that was a little annoying to me. But overall, like I said, the book's broken into 3 parts, and the first part of the book, I was starting to second guess myself and doubt whether I really wanted to read it, which was disappointing to me. But as I got into the second part, I kind of got sucked into it, and then by the time I got to the third part, I was anxious to read the rest of it. So it does start off kind of slow, in my opinion. It's got a lot about history, and there's a lot of medical stuff, medical terminology, but not American medical terminology, but English medical terminology. So it's a little confusing. And then also, she speculates on the way things are going to be in the future, in the way she talks and the things she says. And so, as one person pointed out online, it was kind of odd to them because cell phones weren't really a thing. They weren't popular when the book was originally released. And so all these people in the future, like, none of them can get a hold of each other because they have to hurry and go somewhere where there's a phone so they can call someone. And so, like, it's not totally realistic to the way things are now, because people carry phones with them everywhere they go. And so there's that too. But anyway, I will talk a little bit about the story. But for those that want to read the story and don't want to know the details of the story, you might want to skip ahead to, I think I'll put it over here, whatever the timestamp is right here. And that way you don't get any spoilers. But Anyway, for those that want to know more about the story, I don't have any of my notes now because they're missing. But so I'll just ramble about it a little bit. But so anyway, so they're in Oxford or Oxfordshire. They kind of went back and forth between the two words in the story. So I think it was like in the future it's called one thing, in the past it's called another. And so all these historians, they're at a college and they're doing time travel to study about the future or study about the past, and they're traveling everywhere. And this girl, she goes back to 1320, despite her name's Kivrin, I guess is how you pronounce it. And she goes back, she plans to go back to 1320. That's what they were attempting to send her back to. But there was a glitch. And so anyway, the people that are working together to send her back, after they send her, they go to the pub and they're hanging out and waiting to make sure that she made it okay, while the technician is at the computers running tests. And he comes running into the pub, somewhat frantic, delirious, and they go chasing after him because he didn't really say what was wrong. He just said something was wrong. And they go back to the college where they're doing the time travel at, and he ends up collapsing before he explains what's wrong. And he has to go to the hospital, and he's like severely sick, and they don't know what's wrong with him, and like he almost dies, and it starts a pandemic in that time frame in the future. And so then there's all this speculation and people picketing, and because people are getting sick, starting to get sick everywhere. And so they're trying to trace back to find out where this guy has been, where he could have contracted it from, and trying to find out like who he's had contact with and all that. And as they're doing this, like all these people are getting sick and the hospitals are filling up. And that's when I started like thinking about like the way things were here with the whole, am I allowed to say the word? The whole pandemic stuff that happened here in 2020. Because honestly, when I read the book the first time and I was reading about like the hospitals and everybody wearing masks and all that, it meant nothing to me, and now it's like reality. So that was kind of interesting how it changed my perspective on the book. And anyway, a lot of people died in this outbreak that they have in the future. And I know at times I'm sitting there thinking, and they actually mentioned in the book after I thought it, wondering, did they bring a virus through from when they sent her back? Did a virus come the other direction? And of course they say that's not really possible because it was a one-way transfer. There's no way the virus could have come through the other direction. And but anyway, she goes into the past, and when she gets there, she's pretty much just as sick as the technician that sent her back. And so it takes a while for them to nurse her back to health, because somebody finds her and takes her to their little village. And a lot's going on there, and she's learning about the place and has no idea. She keeps trying to find out because she doesn't remember. See, they were supposed to drop her off near the town, and the drop ended up a little further from the town in the middle of the woods. And so she keeps trying to find out from the people that found her, like where they found her, so that she can go back there in time for them to retrieve her when it's time. And it's called, the thing that retrieves her is called the net. And so basically, if you've seen it, there would be like all this like glittering, sparkly kind of mist looking stuff, and you have to be inside of it in order to go back and forth. And so she was like trying to find a way back to where it was, but since she had been found, it had snowed, and so there's no footprints, no tracks, no nothing. And the people are like, well, why would you want to go back there? Because they thought she had been attacked and robbed, and they're like, oh, you don't want to go there, it's dangerous. And so they wouldn't tell her where it was. And let's see. So she's having fun. She's getting attached to this family and these little kids that are in the family. And then all these people show up one day, and they hurry and take off and leave. I think they said it, well, they called him the clerk, some sort of religious guy, and they leave him behind, telling him, oh, he's going to run your church for you, because one of the ladies in the household was complaining about the guy that was running the church. And they take off and leave this guy there. And after they take off, they realize, the people there, including Kivrin and the family that lives there, realizes the guy's sick. And they keep trying to figure out how to help him, what to do. And then she sees a spot on him, and she realizes that he has the Black Plague. And then she starts demanding them to tell her what year it was, and they're acting like she's crazy. And when they tell her the year, she realizes she's not in 1320, she's in 1348 at the time of the Black Plague. And she starts panicking, and people quickly just started catching it and getting really sick and dying. And she keeps trying to contain it and keep it from spreading, but people don't understand what's happening. And so yeah, that's kind of how the story goes. And big, huge spoiler alert here. So towards the end, she finds out that the priest that originally she thought this guy that was helping the family found her, and then the priest found him on the road and helped him bring her back, but it was actually the other way around. The priest is the one that originally found her and asked the guy to help him bring her back, because the priest actually seen her show up through this misty fog-like stuff and thought that she was sent from heaven to help them, because people were already getting sick in other towns before she showed up. And so the priest thought that God sent her to help them survive. And so he had the secret through the whole book that nobody knew. And the guy that helped the family, he took all the credit for finding her because he liked the attention. And so anyway, do you want to know how the story ends? I'm going to tell you how the story ends. If you don't want to know how the story ends, again, skip to whatever I put right here. But so a lot of people died in the future, a lot of them, including the main doctor that was taking care of people, the guy that didn't want her to go into the future or into the past originally, and he had survived through the majority of the future pandemic. He ended up with it, and he was unconscious for a while. And in that time frame, that's when the doctor died, and a couple other people. And apparently, the original tech finally became alert enough, and he went and tried to retrieve her, but she wasn't there, and or wasn't in the location where the net and the drop were. So he couldn't retrieve her, and then he had a relapse and ended up back in the hospital. And so when the guy that didn't want to go, his name's Mr. Dunworthy, he was like her, what do you call it? Basically, she looked up to him, and he looked at her like she was one of his kids or something, like he was really attached to her. And he kept insisting they had to go get her, even though he wasn't well. And this little boy named Colin, who was the nurse's great nephew, he'd been running errands for everybody this whole time, because he went to visit his great aunt right when the pandemic started and snuck in. And so he'd been running back and forth for everybody, running errands for everybody because he was real fast and he could do it. And so he went and snuck both the tech and Mr. Dunworthy out of the hospital, and they got it all set up so they can go and try to retrieve her. But instead of trying to retrieve her, because they couldn't, she wasn't there at the location, Mr. Dunworthy and Colin went back into the past to find her. And by the time they found her, she was the only person alive in the village. The priest had just died and he was the last one. And so they all made it back. So anyway, so this should be where the timestamp from before is. And so anyway, it is a really good book. It's just really hard to understand at parts and really hard to get into in the beginning. It starts off kind of slow. I mean, it's not slow. If you're into history and medical stuff, it's not slow. It's just slow to me because I wasn't really interested in all the technical stuff. I just wanted to read the story, and I was anxious to read, what happened. And so I had a hard time getting into it, but once I got past the first part of the book, it was hard to put down. So hopefully you guys will read it. It's good. You should read it. The Doomsday Book by Connie Willis. And I will try to be back as soon as I find a copy of the next book that I want to talk about, because mine's missing. But it's called Dragon Tears by Dean Koontz. And what's really absurd about it being missing is I've probably got dozens of his books, and that's the only one I can't find. So, but that's the one I want to read. And honestly, the only other book of his I've read was one that had been converted into a comic book. So it's the only novel of his I've actually read, and I really want to read it again and then go over it with you guys. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share. And get your friends to do the same thing. Thanks. Bye.